Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tactical Gary. I hope everyone has had a chance to check out my last episode. I interviewed a cyber security expert, one of the most tactical individuals on the planet, Agent JS, Agent James Smith. Although I'm starting to think that might not be his real name. I've been able to secure Agent James Smith for another interview today. Normally he costs $10,000 a minute, so I'm not going to waste time with another introduction. I'm just going to get right into it. Agent James Smith, the country has been hacked. People are calling this the biggest hack in history. People are saying that this is the hack version of Pearl Harbor or Hiroshima. But let me ask you, how are you doing these days? Is this keeping you busy?
Yeah, definitely have a lot of requests from people who are just trying to get some advice on how to write their reports. You may have noticed hardly anybody's putting out any reports. So there's several different teams that are working on it. I'm not sure who's going to get the report out there, but you're going to see some reports from some security teams. What I can say here and not be censored or whatever is questionable. You have to let me know.
Well, this is the Tactical Gary YouTube channel. There's nothing you can't talk about because this channel is about getting the most tactical, cutting edge, world-changing information out as quickly as possible. This is the source of news. We break so many international stories that I don't think you should hold back. I think you just should tell us exactly what's going on. What's really going on here, Agent JS?
So what I'm hearing, well, let's just say it out, it's a cyber pandemic. It's actually something it's kind of pretty well known in the communities that I'm working with. That they're expecting this. They've been expecting this for months and kind of like knew that this is going to happen. So I mean, we're going to have to really follow this closely because this is changing a lot, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth going on. And I know you had talked about a little bit last time about what happens when this really hits. There's a cyber war and the power goes out, the internet goes out, and a true SHTF scenario. And we're SHTF scenario. And so we're actually going to be in that scenario, and we're going to have to really watch closely over the coming days, weeks, and figure out the actual hit when it's actually going to hit. But for you guys having to prepare, for your audience especially, you're most ready. But are you ready for all the cyber aspects of this? And that's kind of like why I agreed to come back. Is it's coming fast. It's gonna be a pretty significant situation that we're gonna come against.
You said a very interesting term there. I believe you used the phrase cyber pandemic.
That's correct.
That's a very interesting phrase. I feel like I've heard that recently. Let me bring up. I don't know if you can see my screen. Oh, actually, yes. I'm sharing the wrong screen. I was sharing. I definitely don't want to share that.
You can cut it out.
Yeah, I'll definitely cut this. All right, I'm going to share my Internet Explorer window now.
You need a real browser.
Let me go to my. All right, so I have my favorite browser, Internet Explorer, open up. This is the browser that's used by all the cybersecurity experts and geeks, real geeks. And of course, I'm using my search engine of choice, Bing. Let's look this up here, cyber pandemic, because I feel like I've heard. Interesting, cyber pandemic. Interesting. So this is a great term. Did you coin this, or is this a term that you've heard around the office?
Oh, definitely not me. This is people talking about it. A couple people around the office, but just like some of our clients are like picking up on this term and like using it.
I like it.
Yeah, using it a lot.
I think it's a zinger. Cyber pandemic. The year the COVID-19 crisis brought a cyber pandemic. This is from GT, govtech.com. So I like it. I like the term cyber. I think I'm going to start using that. This is the cyber pandemic. Well, it's good to know that the global elites were a few months ahead of this, and that they were talking about this a lot in the months before this actually happened. It shows that they are on top of things and that they are well prepared. Now, the real question is, can the average prepper, can the average tactical person get prepared? Because if what you say is even 1/10 true, the SHTF scenario that we're facing very soon in coming weeks, months, years, actually, we don't really know. Let's face it, we Agent JS, we probably don't really have a good timeline for when things are going to unfold, or do we?
So that's kind of a complicated question, because which part of this will unfold when is definitely not very clear. But there's certain aspects I think that you're going to see certain aspects happen in days and weeks, and then certain aspects will happen over months. So we have some time for certain aspects of it, but for certain aspects, you're really gonna wanna pay close attention, because just because it starts going in one direction doesn't mean it stays going in that direction, because, as you know, the speed of cyber is fast, and so one chess move could change the direction of one of the powers.
And I think that that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand, is how much international relations or relations between any powerful entities is really a chess game, in the sense that it's mathematical. So in chess, there isn't a time when you can defeat your enemy and you just say, "Well, but I like that person, so I'm not going to beat them. I'm not going to checkmate them because I like them." Mathematically, you're obligated at that point to defeat the enemy mercilessly. And wouldn't you say it's true that when it comes to high level war games, which is, let's face it, we know that what you deal with at times could easily be used for next generation war games. And war games are based on game theory. And in game theory, if the equation changes, the participants are mathematically obligated to take one choice over the other. I mean, I remember hearing about when the United States had acquired the power to use nuclear weapons before anyone else in the world. There were many members of the State Department, often very liberal, often pacifists, who were making the case to Truman that we should bomb Russia into oblivion before they have the ability to develop the same weapons that we did. And this wasn't because they had anything against Russia, that they wanted to cause hundreds of millions of deaths. They just simply said, mathematically speaking, if we act now, we can eradicate this threat to the future. It was almost like a robot calculating the ultimate decision in some complex war games scenario.
Right. I think one of the equivalents that that can definitely play out here is, you may have heard the term quantum supremacy. And basically, when a quantum computer can run some algorithm fast enough, or faster than a traditional computer, and in an efficient enough way, there's already algorithms written to decrypt all the encryption that we have out there today. Well, the normal people have, normal banks have, normal institutions have. And what you'd have to do at that point is you'd have to apply those algorithms to enter the banks of other countries, more or less. It's the equivalent of bombing them before they bomb you.
And it's inevitable that one power will reach quantum supremacy first and obtain this ability to do so. And you're right, from a game theory point of view, when they reach that level of power, it's almost as if they are obligated, based on their mission statement as a nation state, to act on that. And it's a race to the finish line. And that's just one technology. That's just one part of cyber. This must come up in cyber all the time.
Oh,
is there not a cyber arms race?
Oh, yeah. This is definitely for sure. I mean, a lot of large companies across the world will give lip service to being ethical. And when we know kind of behind the scenes, as soon as the technology exists, there's somebody that can steal that from the ethical company. Some bogey is going to go in and steal that powerful that piece of technology and use it for nefarious means and attack somebody. So yeah, so it's definitely an arms race, and obviously there's like this, some of the stuff we talked about last time. Everybody knows it exists. I mean, everybody in the behind the scenes in the cyber security arms race knows it exists, but like certain things that are like off limits to use, or it's like there's a counter that everybody knows that there's a counter attack to that, so they're not going to take the risk. But it's forever you're building defenses and attacks trying to build it faster than the other opponents.
There's a rumor that you've ordered people off of the stage who were talking at DEF CON conferences before, but anyway, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm not going to hold you to that. The interesting thing to think about, just when we're trying to, you do talk about the stages of the SHTF as things unfold and the timing being very complicated. I often compare it sometimes to thinking about something like alien invasion. So if the aliens, or not even an alien invasion, let's just say that the aliens decide to show themselves to the world. They decide to land on the White House lawn tomorrow, and they plan on making what everyone kind of knows. People behind the scenes definitely know, but even the public kind of knows the aliens are real. But at the same time, like, no one really is acting as if they're real. Like, they're not using that information to really make any decisions in their life. They're pretty much going about their life, taking their kids to soccer, going to shooting practice. They're going to they're doing survival workshops over the weekend, and no one is really saying, well, because aliens exist, I'm gonna, this life-changing thing is gonna happen in my life. They're just, it's a background thing. But if aliens landed on the White House lawn tomorrow, I think that would change. And I think that just to take that obvious, inevitable scenario, how would that unfold? And one thing that I like about calling this a cyber pandemic is that when the other pandemic happened, one of the things that was interesting to me as a prepper and as a tactical person was that there were things, the way that it unfolded was very unpredictable. For example, I had predicted that there would be riots in the street, but I didn't predict that the riots in the street would have a political aspect to them. Of course they would. Why didn't I think of that? It was just such an obvious thing, but I missed that in my thousands and thousands of, you do simulations with AI. I was doing simulations in legal pads with pencils, but I literally went through hundreds of notepads trying to war game this out when the pandemic hit. And none of them went into detail about the political ins and outs of the civil unrest. I can only imagine something earth-changing like aliens landing on the White House lawn. I mean, there would be probably riots. There probably would be civil unrest. It would manifest in so many ways that are difficult to predict at this moment, but they would be very real if they were happening in your front lawn. So I'm really interested in this because I think one of the messages for the viewers here is that the cyber pandemic has started. I mean, this Solarwinds hack is the real deal. And if you have people as smart as people in the World Economic Forum calling this a cyber pandemic, I mean, these are the types of people that Tactical Gary would hire for my internal think tanks, just to to have really good tactical war games. These are the best in the world minds at this, and if they're calling this a cyber pandemic, I can't imagine how they could be wrong about this. I don't know who this guy is. He keeps coming up a lot, but what are the main phases of a cyber pandemic, and which phase are we in right now?
Right. So there are at least three main phases, depending on how you break it down. There's the first phase we would call in the field landing. So like you were talking about when you're talking about the UFO or the alien landing situation is very similar. You'd actually have your cyber agents land where you need them to land. So that's so we're seeing this. We're definitely seeing stages. It's not going to necessarily be clean. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. We've stage 1 is happening at times, but there was definitely agents that landed in the United States. I mean, there's no question that the situation that's unfolding right in front of our eyes is stage one landings that are happening. That's stage one, and it's happening. But some of these future stages are also playing out, like at times. Again, it's like it's not going to be clean. That here we're gonna progress very cleanly through these things. Stage two, we term this chaos. So this is for you on a tactical level. This is a SHTF scenario where there is a lot of stuff going to be happening, and the chaos can be as simple as power goes out in United States, or the power goes out in Somalia. It's pretty chaotic, and so that's stage two. So in stage three, what we call it is typically we call acceptance, and acceptance meaning that what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate the new changes into the future world in a like an offline, just in a regular world. Like, does that mean people are living in huts? In a cyber world, we go back to we could very well end up in a situation where we have to rely on your Windows 95 for a little while. We go back to the equivalent of Windows 95 cyber world, where we have slightly different stuff going on, but we also are incorporating quantum, and obviously we push through COBOL. I mean, we know there's a few things that we know, like COBOL will be there. Like we'll have that Windows 95, obviously, but some of the other little pieces we still don't know. So it's like what would you expect in your post SHTF?
SHTF.
So what would you expect in your post SHTF scenario? What things are you guaranteed to have in that space and in that world? And then what are your kind of question marks?
Right. So just that one phase, because all three of these phases are fascinating, but just in that SHTF phase, we're dealing with all sorts of interruptions, secondary effects, tertiary effects. For example, in that scenario where there's the grid down, then there's food disruptions, there's riots, there's looting, there's anarchy. I know that there's a lot of police who they have a line in their head where once society breaks down beyond that line, they are no longer going to act in their capacity as a enforcer of the law, and they are going to then go back to their family to protect their family, because these people may have a family. And I know in a lot of officers' mind, not everyone, I can't speak for any officer, I'm not a police officer, but I definitely have heard police officers say that. And there's a channel, Prepper 2.0, where they had a law enforcement officer on recently talking about this. And those effects just sort of snowball. But what's interesting is that to go back to Windows 95 from where we are, to go back 25 years into the past seems so crazy. But yet at the same time, everywhere where I've looked up what is the recommended solution to the Solarwinds hack if you were affected, is universally burn everything down and rebuild your whole network. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. When I hear that phrase, that sounds a lot like going back to Windows 95, building it the right way in COBOL. And this might actually lead to a more solid future, a world of a future that's very bright with lots of solid COBOL programming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that we know. That much we know. There's already a lot of open source projects that'll run a lot more effectively than the SolarWinds software.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of SHTF scenarios that are going to unfold in the coming weeks and months because of this is astronomical, even if the hackers don't initiate anything. Just the US response alone could lead to SHTF scenarios that in turn lead to other retaliations. I don't see how we can put this hack just gently under the rug and move forward. I think that those phases that you described they're impossible to escape at this point, probabilistically.
Right.
So
Right.
this means every listener needs to get their water filter. I hope that the listeners have really been stocking up canned fish, because how are you going to be buying canned fish once we're in phase 2, SHTF?
Right. No.
Do we even
No.
know the extent of this hack?
Not that we can talk about for sure. For sure. And from what I'm hearing, and this is secondhand because they don't have me in directly in any of these things because they don't want to they don't want to unleash so much power at this point. So they're just very slowly collecting some evidence. But from what I'm hearing, there's some very sophisticated actors, and they're covering up the trails in pretty novel ways. And so it's kind of like the best way, kind of tying back to the alien thing. It's kind of like aliens landed, they on the White House lawn, like you said. They landed, and they got out. They showed off their technology. They had a conversation with some leaders. They decided, let's erase the memory of these people so very selectively. It wasn't like, oh, no, everybody forgets. No, these people lose their memory. These people, they get transplanted to somewhere else so they can be used in something, like in the aliens, of course, they already have some of our same technologies where you can, just extract the consciousness. Of course they've been doing that too. I mean, the whole story of abducted by aliens. I mean, obviously you see the person the next day. A lot of times abduction was just taking out their consciousness just so they can run some simulations. So they really understand us well, so they've ran the simulations. They understand what can and can't happen. And they have, obviously they have different places to run them in against. And how would some of our world leaders respond in some of those alien lands? And so and so going back to cyber, of course, we have these different little Trojan horses, Trojan unicorns. Sometimes they're going in, they're collecting some information, and then just being sneaking out of there, and you don't even know how they got in, and you don't even know what they collected, and they don't know how they got out. So, I mean, it's definitely a unique situation that we're facing.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about all the secondary effects this could have, because even if you tear that network down and you build it back up, you can say that, well, there's certain information that once you get that information, you have that information. So, for example, certain scientific, or for example, if you've hacked into a major chip company and you steal all the plans to make the chips, like all the ultra secret plans to make those state of the art chips. Once you have that knowledge, you have that knowledge. So there's nothing that can be done after the fact. It's like the leak's been done, the damage is done. And then you have that information. You can then use that to build supercomputers. You can use it to build weapons. The possibilities multiply very rapidly at that point.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's actually a huge concern for a lot of these companies, because they have built very specific hardware that's actually super impressive. That
Right.
they have proprietary knowledge of how that really works, and they're really, a lot of times they're very concerned about that information getting out.
So is the moral of the story? I mean, those who were not affected, at least not directly affected, were the lazy people who just are sort of like not really able to keep their software upgraded. Because a lot of these, well, that assumes that this started back in March of 2020. Maybe it started much sooner. But assuming that it started in March or at some point, you would have had to have updated your computer. But now that I'm thinking about this, and now that you have my mind going so fast and in so many different directions, I'm thinking there could have been obviously you have the Solarwinds breach. You have one actor, maybe multiple actors, taking advantage of different levels of the system, letting in additional actors potentially. And once they have their way to the core databases, that database has all your passwords, it has all your keys, and then they can use those passwords to get other passwords, to get other passwords. Eventually, like 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon in this case becomes 3 degrees of having the certificate authority of all keys that GoDaddy has sold. I mean, it's if they were successful enough in a very particular direction, they could have compromised everything. And I think maybe right now there's behind the scenes a little bit of SHTF is I see what you mean, like multiple stages have started at the same time, because I'm sure behind the scenes in a lot of places right now, it is SHTF. It is phase 2, chaos.
Right.
And what I haven't seen so far are like the interruptions. I haven't really seen systems going offline entirely to deal with it or being locked down. At least maybe I have seen those happen. I just didn't know it. I know there's been a lot of outages in the last couple months. I don't know if you're at liberty to talk about that.
Well, we're actually fairly fortunate that there are some high availability scenarios that play out. I mean, the whole idea of the cloud was so that you could have so some of the clients connect to one server in North America East or West or whatever, and so you might experience, if it have to go to a different part of the country, or even has to go across to a European server, you might experience like a couple hundred milliseconds of delay at times. But most people don't notice. Was that my phone? Was that my Wi-Fi? Was that my computer? Like I know you wouldn't experience that on any of your hardware. It's high end. Especially the Windows 95.
Actually, I noticed it. I noticed it the other day. I was watching Tactical Rifleman, and I noticed that when Chad and Carl were going to recommend a new knife, there was a little bit of a hiccup, about 100 milliseconds, and I thought to myself, they're switching AWS zones.
So yeah, so in general, like a lot of this stuff can happen, but I mean, what was it? A couple weeks ago, the Google Gmail was out for an hour in many locations. I think it was most locations. They had a situation where their authentication service was basically broken everywhere. It took them time to bring up a whole new service from ground. At least they can do it in an hour. For that service. It's quite impressive. Quite impressive they can do it without using Google to search, right? So they're probably really banging some stuff to figure out what to run for the commands and stuff.
I bet the Bing traffic tripled that day, and it was all Google employees trying to figure out how to fix things.
Yeah. So
it just would have taken them to Stack Overflow anyway. They could just skip the middleman, but I digress.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you can find stuff in the direct sites, but Stack Overflow is definitely a solid product that has a lot of code in there and answers.
Right. So what you're telling us, Agent J. Smith, is it's on another level of warning the public about SHTF scenarios that could unfold and the need to responsibly and urgently prepare. Now, I don't want to cause a panic. I don't want to cause any incite any sort of panic, but basically things are going to get really bad. They're going to get really horrible very quickly. You need to start becoming a full-on prepper at this point. And if most of my audience is, but I know that there's a few people who might have stumbled upon this by accident, and maybe they're not tactical, maybe they're not preppers. You're kind of late to the game, but you can start now. And obviously, not everyone needs to become a prepper. Agent JS, you have bots that do that for you. You don't even need to get that physical world. But you're a rare exception to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely recommend the for your people who watch your, we call it show. people watch your show. People who watch your show should definitely be buying that extra can what was your favorite
skipjack tuna. It has
skip?
less mercury and it's cheaper than the albacore and a lot of the fancy tuna fish brands. So always go with that skipjack. And bonus tip, a lot of chunk lights is largely skipjack at a reduced price.
Okay, so definitely get your extra skipjack tuna, and
that's the type of tip you only hear in the Tactical Gary YouTube channel. You don't get that anywhere else.
Right, that's true. That's true, actually. Yep, I can verify. I can cross-reference all your material very quickly.
Right, you can do a search on across the entire internet on secret networks that we don't even know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one reason I definitely still have some very high-tech gadgets guarding your area. I'm not sure if you wanted to get into it now, but we did deploy the Harris Stingray.
Harris Seeds Company. Okay,
Harris Stingray 2.
Okay.
Roman numeral 2.
Okay, let's go to all. Let's see everything that Bing has on this.
There we go.
It's some kind of electronical device. Looks very tactical. Looks very cool. Here's an article from The Intercept. The Secret Surveillance Catalog.
Right.
Wikipedia Stingray phone tracker. The Stingray, is an IMSI catcher, a cellular phone surveillance device initially developed for the military and intelligence community.
Right. We want to get this in your area because we want to know tactically, who's in your area, what's going on. And yeah, go ahead.
They show a black van outside somebody's house. So the black vans are real.
Yeah. So we wanted to collect some data in your area. Who's in your area, but also if we need to quickly either divert something you're doing or give you some sort of update that we need you to have quicker, we can also do it through that means too. I mean, it's very flexible technology, as you can see from the picture.
I appreciate that, Agent JS, but I can't help but feel like there's also a little bit of an element of intimidation, an intimidation factor to work here. But that's all fine. It's all well and good. I understand. Obviously, I have been running into these a lot lately. The other day I was at the supermarket and I went to get some tactical cereal, and there was one of these between the two, and now I understand why. So it's sort of all coming together.
Right. Yeah, we definitely like to have them near cereal. They since they like numbers in the order, like lots of numbers. They in a certain order. Cereal boxes have those numbers in certain order. Yes. What do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So this is good stuff. I think this is amazing that like cyber stuff and SHTF has very quickly merged into and it's only the Tactical Gary channel really is the only prepper channel who's on the lead on this. Thanks to Agent JS. Agent JS, I know that your time is very valuable. You charge a very high rate. Only channels like the Tactical Gary channel can afford you. Can we just get one more solid gold nugget? On the last episode, you told everyone to get a second factor of authentication. It would make their system so much secure, but you reminded them, get a good second factor, make it a good, solid second factor. And just doing that would make everything so much better. And now that the world has been hacked and we're in this cyber pandemic, now that we're in this stage 1, the landing of the cyber pandemic, moving quickly into stage 2, chaos, and then eventually we'll have the post SHTF world, stage 3, that you spoke about, that industry term. but you're always giving us preppers tactical advice how we can prepare. We're definitely gonna expect that everything's been hacked. We're gonna have our second factor. What's another, just something that everyday people, normies everywhere, could do to make themselves just a little bit more cyber tactical?
I have another suggestion that's along these lines.
Sure.
It would be to have a password manager, and so you can do a couple different scenarios. If you don't have access, if you have it behind where you don't have access to the internet, you can do like a KeyPass tool. Like, so KeyPass would be an open source version of a password manager you could use. Or if you access to the cloud, there's several password managers you could use, and it's even though there's a risk with the cloud, it's still beneficial to have a password manager even in the cloud, because you are then you're using those things for cloud-based things anyways. So then you're more assured that when you're accessing a certain website that you're trusting to a password manager to be able to feed you the password that you need for that you're actually reaching that site. So a password manager either locally, so like KeyPass X, or something like a 1Password, or you can pick your favorite vendor. And
I'm just going to say, I know a lot of people use their Gmail account as their password manager. In other words, their password manager is the little "I forgot my password" button, because they can't manage all their passwords, and their life is a digital mess. Their security is compromised.
right, yes, you have the email fallback typically, and that is definitely can get super messy, because obviously email can get intercepted very easily. Um, so having a password manager that will generate long passwords for you, you can configure the basic settings to have a lot of characters. So you'd
So,
have,
what you're saying is that with the password manager, not only do I have a central place to manage the password, because I'm always forgetting the passwords, I'm always having to have that password reset button sent to me, and if someone else were to get that button and possibly change my password, I might be in a bad situation, I might be in a bad scenario. So what you're saying is the password manager gives you this superhuman ability where now you can use 64 character or 128 character passwords generated with very sophisticated algorithms. And you can use that even though you could never remember all those passwords. And you could even change it on a regular basis. And you have tools that help you to control all of that.
right. Yep. So those two things together, the password manager, and then having extra factors. So even if you have say you you should protect your password manager with a second factor, protect your primary your primary email with a second factor. That those alone together provide a pretty solid little combo.
So preppers out there, I know that this coming weekend you are going to reorganize your canned fish section of your bunker. Maybe you are going to go to the store, buy a lot of apple cider vinegar because it has a 20 to 30-year shelf life. Or maybe you were just going to collect a lot of rice because you can use it as a desiccant to dry out certain things like in your ammo boxes. But I urge you, just this weekend, instead stay home, have a staycation, take a few days off for the holidays, and everyone go through all your passwords, all your spouse's passwords, because your house is only as tactical as the weakest cyber link. That's what Tactical Gary and Agent JS always say. So go through all of your passwords this weekend, go through all of your accounts, get the second factor on those critical things. Agent JS said get a password manager, have a good secondary multi-factor authentication, good secondary authentication on your email, your main email, on your password manager. If all the Tactical Gary subscribers did that in the next few days, I think they would probably be one of the few small populations on Earth to survive this coming stage 2 as we move into chaos, as we move into SHTF, the fallout from solar burst, from the Solarwinds hack, what experts are calling the biggest hack, bigger than Pearl Harbor in the cyber war. People are calling this coming era this new era that we're in, the cyber pandemic. So get ready. If you own an IT security company, get ready for a lot of work. Actually, get ready for a really good year. And if you don't own a cybersecurity company, why on earth are you not owning a cybersecurity company right now? It's like the hot thing. So I just want to end on one last question, Agent JS. I know your time is. I know nations. I know that many of the world's biggest entities are ringing. They're dialing your ultra secret secure devices right now. But I just got one last question. If there's one thing that we should all remember above all else, what is it?
So the answer to your question is to stay tactical.
Stay tactical. I can't disagree with that. Anyway, Agent JS, I appreciate it. Audience, you have homework. If everyone does this, this could be the life-changing thing that gets you through SHTF. Also, start thinking about your digital prepping. Think about when you have to hop into that bug out scenario, what kind of hard drives are you going to be able to grab? Are they going to be all your backup hard drives? Are they going to be your primary hard drives? How are you going to protect those hard drives through all sorts of weather? Are they going to be in a waterproof container? So we're going to get into this in the future. We're going to become cyber preppers. And remember, folks, stay tactical.